Bruce Lee. Just the name itself, right? It conjures up these images of lightning-fast kicks, that incredible intensity. He was a global superstar, a true martial arts legend. But behind all of that, behind the yellow jumpsuit and the battle cries, was a really profound thinker. A philosopher who didn't just reshape combat, but our whole idea of self-expression. Okay, let's get into it.
This is it. This is the quote he is probably most famous for. It sounds so simple, but it's incredibly deep, and it's really the core of his entire philosophy. But here's the thing. This wasn't some idea he was just born with. No, this was an idea forged in the fire of conflict, of frustration, and a really deep personal crisis. And that's the real story we're going to dig into. It's this incredible journey from a confident, maybe even a little arrogant, young prodigy to a revolutionary thinker. And believe it or not, it all hinges on one private, super controversial fight that totally changed the course of his life.
So to really understand that transformation, we've got to go back to the beginning. Because before Bruce Lee was this legendary fighter, he was a performer. He was literally born into the world of entertainment. I mean, just look at his early life. You see this amazing mix of talents. Born in San Francisco, Hour of the Dragon, which is a powerful omen, by the way. He was a child actor in like over 20 films. He trained under the master, Yip Man, sure. But get this, he also won a cha-cha dancing championship. It just shows you how complex he was from the very start. And then at 18, he lands back in America with just $100 in his pocket, ready to carve out his own path.
So in Seattle, he goes to university to study philosophy, balancing the mind and the body. He opens his own martial arts school. But he does something that really ruffled a lot of feathers in the traditional martial arts world. He taught anyone. Anyone who was serious about learning, he taught them. Didn't matter what their background was. And that decision, that right there, set him on a collision course with the old guard. And that collision, well, it all came to a head in Oakland, California, back in 1964. A challenge was made, and it led to this private duel that would become the stuff of legends. But why did it even happen? Well, that's where the story starts to get complicated. Yeah, there's no single agreed-upon reason. I mean, even today, all these decades later, the truth is kind of shrouded in mystery. There are these two completely competing narratives. It really, really depends on who you ask. So the most popular story, the one you hear from Lee's side, is that the traditionalists were furious he was teaching outsiders, so they sent their top fighter, Wong Jack Man, to basically shut it down. But the other side claims Lee was the one who started it, that he put out this brash, open challenge to the entire San Francisco martial arts scene, and Wong Jack Man just stepped up to answer the call. Either way, a line had been crossed. So behind closed doors, with just a handful of people watching, the two men faced off. And honestly, who won the fight is way less important than what the fight did to Bruce Lee himself. This single event became the catalyst for his entire creative and philosophical revolution. And the stories of the fight itself, they could not be more different. Lee's wife, Linda, she described this quick, brutal victory in under 3 minutes, with Lee just overwhelming Wong until he surrendered. But Wong Jack Man and his supporters, they tell a completely different story. They say it was this long, exhausting 25-minute marathon where Lee couldn't land a knockout blow and just ran out of gas. I mean, two totally irreconcilable versions of the same event. But let's hear from the man himself. In an interview, without even naming his opponent, Lee admitted how frustrated he was. He talked about chasing the guy, punching him awkwardly, swelling up his own fists. You don't hear any bragging there, do you? That is the sound of deep, deep dissatisfaction. And that's the absolute key. It didn't matter who won. In his own mind, Lee felt he had failed. The fight was sloppy, it took way too long, and his traditional Wing Chun training just wasn't practical enough for a real chaotic fight. He had a complete crisis of faith in everything he'd ever been taught. And that crisis, it gave birth to a whole new idea. He realized that if he wanted to be a truly effective martial artist, he had to break free from these rigid old systems. He had to create something brand new, something that actually worked in reality, not just in a dojo. He called it Jeet Kune, which translates to the way of the intercepting fist. But it wasn't just a new set of moves. JKD was a philosophy. It was a radical break from tradition. The whole point was to focus on what was practical and efficient, no matter where the technique came from. And the process was pretty methodical. It started with that crisis from the fight that led to this intense period of research. He didn't just practice, he read. He studied Western boxing, fencing, wrestling, anything he could get his hands on. and he came up with a core principle: absorb what is useful, reject what is useless. Simple, right? The result was a martial art that was uniquely his, a style of no style. And these are the guiding principles. It's all about stripping things down to what's most essential, most direct. Using no way as way means you're not trapped by one single method. Having no limitation as limitation means your potential is infinite. You can kind of see how this is becoming way more than just a fighting style, right? And this is the point where the martial artist fully becomes the philosopher. All the lessons he learned from tearing down combat and rebuilding it, they became lessons for how to navigate life itself. So we come all the way back to this quote, but now it has so much more meaning, doesn't it? This isn't just some cool phrase. It's the final destination of a painful, frustrating, but ultimately liberating journey that started in that back room in Oakland. It's the answer to the problem he couldn't solve during that fight. So, what does it actually mean to be water? Well, it means being fluid. It means not being rigid, not clinging to one plan or one belief. It's about adapting to whatever life throws at you, instead of trying to force things your way. And really, at its heart, it means freedom. The freedom to be yourself, honestly and completely, without being trapped in some predefined box. And this is what made him so much more than an action star. When people saw him on screen, they weren't just seeing an incredible fighter. They were seeing a man who embodied this philosophy of freedom and total self-expression. He brought a way of living to a global audience, and that's why he's still such an icon today. So, I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. We all have these rigid structures in our lives, right? Habits, beliefs, routines. What would happen if you just let them go? If you allowed yourself to be fluid, to adapt, to just flow? What could you become?